what do you do with the fact that you've done it, you've gotten into law school, and now you're looking at these offers like, I have decisions to make? How? And maybe you're like, okay, but I don't even have all my decisions yet, so I can't even begin that process, right? Maybe not. Let's talk about it. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sydney Montgomery. I am the executive director and founder of Barrier Breakers, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to increasing access to and success in higher education for BIPOC and other marginalized students. And here at S. Montgomery Admissions Consulting, a brand underneath Barrier Breakers, we specialize in working with first generation and minority law school applicants. And I am so excited to talk to you about acceptances, because who doesn't like to talk about acceptances? Really just a wonderful time. You feel like you've done it. You've worked really hard. Some of you, this has been a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year journey, and you've received some of your first acceptance letters. Now, there are more coming. If you're watching this video and you're like, I haven't received any yet, I promise you there are more coming. And usually, you will get acceptances throughout the spring, February, March, even April. I know I hate to say that because waiting is the worst, but even April for those May deposit deadlines. And because sometimes you might get some acceptances in December, January, February, and you won't get some acceptances until April, it's actually a good idea to start the evaluation process earlier than later. Because if you wait to even think about how to evaluate your offers until you've received your very last offer, perhaps in April, you're going to be really stressed for a very quick May turnaround with deposit deadlines. And I don't want you making a decision this big that you've worked so hard for that stressed. It's just not worth it. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how you begin to evaluate your law school offers, even when you're still waiting on other offers. What are things that you can do? What data points do you need in order to make a smart decision? And I say that because even though it's a very emotional decision, it's a beautiful, happy, we've worked really hard, it's also a financial investment, it's a time investment, it's your network. You know that cliche about your network becoming your net worth. It's true. And so I want to make sure that you're making a good investment, an investment that you're going to feel happy about really at the end of the day. And that's going to not only make you feel happy, but also fulfill your career goals. And that's going to continue to pay dividends, right? You want to continue to reap the benefits of your investment no matter where your career goes. And you want to think about the decision that you're making now as getting the best return on your investment. So there are a couple things that we can do when we start thinking about evaluating the offers that we've already received. And I am a big proponent of making data-informed decisions. I will say data is like not my favorite word. I was an English major, STEM, science, math. It's like not my favorite thing. But I do think that a lot of times when we have indecision, and I am probably one of the most indecisive people, but when we have indecision, I think oftentimes getting enough information, you don't want information overload, right? Because you can go too far. But you need enough information to make a sound decision. And oftentimes I see students who are trying to make these really big life-altering decisions with no information. And then it's like, oh, well, there's things that you can do. So the first thing that I encourage all my students to do, once maybe you can't do it for all of your schools, right? But especially once you're starting to narrow it down, is go and visit. Now, listen, some of you did not listen to me in October, over the summer. I said, do virtual information sessions, go on a virtual tour, meet with admissions officers. Some of you didn't do that. Just, it's okay. We're all friends here. You can tell me. Now is the time. Now is the time to do that. So if you can't physically go and visit a school that you've gotten into, I want you to at least do a virtual information session. It's really important that you take the time to research these schools. There are a couple of things that I want you to be looking out for on these information sessions. A lot of times they're going to talk about their student body ratio. They might talk about the different clinics, externships, journals that they have. They might talk about resources that they have, student housing if they have any. They might be talking about clubs and affinity groups and organizations, different professors. But as an admitted student, I want you to make sure that you're getting your questions answered. So, find out from yourself what's going to make a good fit. I also used to do college admissions, and that good fit language is something we talk a lot about college admissions. We don't talk about as much in graduate school admissions, but you need to go to a place that's going to make you happy, that you are going to thrive at, as well as being a good return on investment. But if you are at a school that you're uncomfortable at, you're really not going to be able to thrive, and it doesn't matter what the name is on the diploma if you don't do well, right? Because that's the worst kind of return that you'll get. But oftentimes when you actually get into a school, the schools will have these admitted student days or admitted student weekends, or if they don't have formal programming and you reach out to admissions and you say, hey, I am really interested in the school, but I just don't feel comfortable going to a school that I haven't visited at. Is there any way that, we could arrange a visit? Oftentimes admissions is more than happy to help that. Now, if you're like, Sydney, I can't afford it. Again, I say ask not, receive not. I'm not saying that all of your schools will be able to help you financially to go, but there are a lot of schools that actually have money set aside. Travel stipends for lower income students or students with need, or they might be able to put you in touch with the Black Law Students Association or the Latinx Student Association or the Parents Association or whatever association it is, and they might have ability to help you, or even if they can't help you with a flight or a train, maybe you can stay with them. I know I did this in my experience. I went to see, I didn't go to see all of the schools that I got into, but like maybe my top 4 or 5 schools I really tried to visit. And I remember, shout out to Berkeley, I was like, I'm so interested, but I've never been to California. And I just don't know that I can commit to a school on the other side of the country like without having ever gone. Regardless, it was a really good visit. It was a really informative visit. I clearly chose to go to Harvard Law School, but it was a really informative visit for me in terms of what I was looking for. But the dean of admissions at the time actually helped me financially because I was a senior in college and my parents weren't able to help me with the cost of the law school application or any of these costs. And so I just wasn't able to fly to California. I just couldn't do that. And so she really helped me financially. And then I stayed with a Black Law Student Association member, like on a pull-out or air mattress or something like that. I don't even remember. And I was there for 3 days, which was incredibly generous of them. And it was good because I got to meet people and I got to save some money. And similarly, when I went to visit Harvard Law School, I stayed again on the floor, pull-out coach of another Black Law Student Association member. I mean, I think I did a lot of couch surfing at that time in my life. Like when I went to Columbia, it was the same thing, right? These affinity groups really took care of me and hosted me and helped me be able to get eyes on the different schools and interact with students. And I think that's really important. That's one of those benefits of visiting over doing a virtual information session, especially if you're a student of color, because it's such a small community. Like I remember at some of the schools, like the Black Law Students Association would be like maybe 30 or 40 students, right? And so, I'm a 0L. And so looking at the current 1Ls and the current 2Ls, and the current 3Ls are going to graduate, but the current 1Ls and current 2Ls, like these are about to be my classmates. It's not a theoretical. It's not like I might know them. It's not like we might see each other. Like there's only 40 people at this school that are Black. 10 of them are graduating or whatever. These other 30 people, they will be your classmates. And so that, I think the smallness of law school was really interesting to me because even outside of the Black Law Students Association, even seeing all the other kind of students are like, these are the students that are interested in children's issues, which is what I was interested in, child custody and divorce and family law, which is what I practiced. Or these are the other students that are from Maryland or whatever, like whatever those groups are for you, like actually understanding that when you go to visit and you're meeting the current students, these will be your classmates, and given how small most law school classes are, you will know them. So if you go a place and you're like, wow, I actually hated everyone, you're not going to magically go there and just like everyone. But if you go there and you love it, like that's a good chance that like, hey, this might be a really good supportive community for me. So there's a lot of power in visiting to get a sense of the vibe, to get a sense of, do I like to be in a city? Maybe you're from a rural area or you're from a smaller town and you've never been in a big city and it might seem great, but maybe it's not for you, right? Now, I'm not saying like these factors, like the people and urban versus rural, they're important, but I wouldn't base your entire decision decision off of it, because again, law school is not like college. So the return on investment calculations are a little bit different, because there are real career and economic consequences for choosing certain schools over other schools. But it is a factor, and it is something that you should start to think about. Now, if you can't go visit a school, like I said, do a virtual information session, do a Zoom with an admissions officer. You've gotten in. They will talk to you. Or they might help put you in contact with another student. Now, don't just start asking for Zoom calls, but some admissions officers at some schools, they actually have Zoom office hours set up and available for you. I know I speak about this a lot in the application process. Use the tools that are set up and available for you to get to know the schools. So that's really important. And talk to students, right? So if you can do maybe a virtual tour or a virtual information session, try to talk to a couple of students. And if you're like, I don't know anyone, start first with your undergrad and see where their alumni went, and see if they have, ask your career services. And if you've graduated, ask your career services anyways. Be like, hello, I'm so-and-so from the class of so-and-so. I was recently accepted to this law school. I was just wondering if you knew if we had any alum currently at the school. All they can say is no, right? But they really should not say no. They really should at least try. I mean, maybe there's no one, but if there is someone, they should actually try to put you in contact. Or they'll be able to hopefully find a directory, or you can look on LinkedIn. But I love it when there's a warm intro, because sometimes those cold LinkedIn messages are, and people feel different ways about cold LinkedIn messages. But try to talk to someone and get their current experiences. I still do this for HLS. I don't really do it for my undergrad that much, because it's not something that's really asked of me. But I know that, every year admissions asks for volunteers to talk to prospective students about their experiences. So usually it's February, March, April. There might be a student that's choosing between schools, and they may have asked admissions, to put them in contact with alumni or whatever. And I will be very honest, I am very candid, good, bad, ugly. And I think most people are. Like, I made many of those calls when I got into my schools for law school. I needed to talk to a Black person at every single school I was considering. It was not an option. I just needed to know, and I needed to know what the Black experience was like, and I needed to know about the community, and I needed to know these things. And people were very honest and transparent, because it doesn't do me any good to lie to you. Like, it's not all roses, it's not awful, it's not all roses though, right? There are things, and it's up to the person listening to decide, oh, you know what, that's a thing that I really care about, and oh, you know what, I don't really care. Like, that thing, it bothered her, it doesn't bother me. But at least or I can make a decision going, you know what, there are some things I know that I'm not going to like at this school, but I'm still going to choose it. But again, we're making data-informed decisions. So I'm a big advocate of talking to current students or recent alum. I think current students are better because these schools change really quickly, but I think that you should try to get as much information about someone's experience as possible. And I don't want it just to be about race. So I know I've mentioned the Black law students a lot, but for example, I'm someone now, not then, but now, who has an autoimmune and connective tissue disease. And so for me, if I were evaluating law schools right now, I think it would be important that I understand or talk to someone that's had maybe some chronic health issues, because I'd love to see, our professors really understanding about that. Have you gotten support from student disability services? Do you feel like the health services on campus are helpful? Those are really important things to my ability to succeed as a student. Just my lived experiences right now. Maybe you're a mom and you want to talk to another mom about how they found it. Maybe there's a really robust network of students that will volunteer to babysit, or maybe it's really difficult to be a working mom at this school. Or not a working mom, but I mean, sometimes you are a working mom, right? Especially if you're going part-time. So whatever it is that's this is my reality, I would love for you to try to find someone that has similar, no one's the same, but similar experiences, so that you can start to paint a picture of what it's actually going to be like for you at that school. Because so oftentimes what we see in students that are looking to transfer is they thought school would be one way, and then it was a totally different thing than they thought. And a lot of times that is a reflection of not having enough information, or not having maybe the right information. So information gathering in terms of visiting admitted student stays, virtual events, talking to students is really helpful. That second piece that I want you to be starting to evaluate is the finances. Now, I am a big spreadsheet girl, and I think it's just important to know all the costs. And so I think, I've broken this down a few different times. We'll talk about it when we're evaluating financial aid offers, but I like to kind of have a spreadsheet where I put in, okay, this is the school. In fact, for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, I am going to share my screen so you can see it. And for those of you that are listening to the podcast, I'm just going to explain it really well so that it's something that you have. I'm going to kind of walk you through how we kind of deal with looking at financial aid and looking at the costs, because I think it's easy to compare this and to compare apples to oranges in a way that's really, really unhelpful. The first column is going to be the school. Next to it, I want you to put the total yearly cost. And I want you to put the total cost. So not just tuition, but the total cost. So including the personal amount, the loans, all of that kind of stuff. And then any kind of scholarships you've applied to and scholarships that you've received. So scholarships you've applied to can be, merit scholarships from that school, or it can be outside scholarships. And then, any scholarships that you've received. And then, like a little check mark to yourself, have you applied to any institutional need-based aid? Then in another column, I want you to write all the loans that are needed. And this one is really important because a school can cost, let's say total cost of $80,000, and they can give you $30,000, right, in scholarships. So you might need $50,000 in loans. But another school can cost $100,000, and they might give you $40,000. And it's really easy to be like, well, this school gave me $40,000 and this other school gave me $30,000, so the $40,000 school is better. But when you put in loans needed, you'll actually see that school, you're gonna need $60,000, right? So I want you to really, it's like simple math, but I want you to do the math and break it down. And then I want you to look, next column, average median salary, because then that's where we're getting into that return on investment, and we're starting to see, okay, if I need to take out $60,000 in loans a year, hopefully you don't, but if you do, what kind of salary would make that feasible for me? And if the average median salary is only $55,000 at that school, you're going to have a harder time with that kind of debt load. But if the average median salary is $200,000 and you're taking out $40,000 in loans every year, you're going to be okay. Right? But these are things that you need to know. And so I want you to start kind of working on comparing finances. And you can just start right like as you're getting your offers. I know you're not going to have all of your offers, but you can start right as you're getting your offers, getting all of those costs down. And there are things that you can do. Of course, you don't have to borrow the full personal amount. If you have savings, it might offset some of this. But I think just to get a baseline apples to apples comparison is really important. And then the third thing that I want you to start doing research on is employment outcomes. And that goes to that average median salary that we were talking about. But start looking at, you can look at law school transparency. You can look at other things where you can see, okay, from this school, the average graduation rate, who have a job or in a clerkship within 6 months is X. From this school, it's only like, if it's 90%, great. If it's 60%, not so great. And then in that job, I want you to look like, okay, I know I want to go to Big Law. Oh, well, at this school, even though I like these things, only about 1% of students go to Big Law. But at this school, even though I like these things and there's some other things I didn't like, 90% of students go to Big Law. And I know for me, that's super important, right? And so if that's, obviously it wasn't for me, but if that's what's important to you, or, clerkships, if, a school that has really good clerkship support is important to you, those are things that matter and should factor heavily in the equation of return on investment, right? Like I can maybe deal with the fact that the student housing options aren't so great if there's an 80% larger chance that I can go to Big Law. And if that's my one thing, or I don't like the cold, but I'll be cold for 3 years. If the career differences are that big, right? Now, obviously you can't do that with everything. There may be things where it's no, actually I will not have a good experience and not do well as a student, and so maybe the career options don't matter as much if I'm not doing well. So you have that, but you need to make that informed decision. And so then the last piece of this little square of information is the bar passage rate, which you should have looked at before you applied. But It's okay, friends, safe space. Maybe you didn't, maybe you just went straight off of rankings, or maybe you just kind of looked at what, was near you, and that's fine. You haven't done that research. That's okay. Let's look at the bar passage rate, because, then we're talking again a return on investment. Maybe the school is $20,000 cheaper, but so many of their graduates are not passing the bar. Well, it might be worth taking on a little bit more debt to go to a school that is going to support your career a little bit more, because going to law school and not being supported enough to pass the bar is one of the worst things. There are lots of great people who choose not to practice law, who didn't pass the bar, who all those things. But when you're comparing schools and you have options, that is something that you want to be comparing as well. So those 4 things, like I said: visiting, getting to know the school, the geography, talking to admissions, talking to admitted students, getting to know what their perspectives are, talking to students that have things in their background that are similar to you, whether that's race or socioeconomics or parenting status or health issues or whatever, just getting a feel for the school, understanding the financial landscape, and really making sure that you're comparing apples to apples, understanding the employment landscape and making sure that it's going to be a really strong return on investment, and then understanding the bar passage rate and making sure that you can actually do the thing that you want to do if your goal is to practice. So those are the things that I want you to start doing research now, because it's going to be super stressful. If you've applied to 10 schools and you get into all 10, praise God. But if you don't start doing that until April and you have to make a decision in 2 or 3 weeks, you're going to be like real stressed. And you're not even physically going to have time to do things like, oh, let me go visit or let me do those things. Now it's February, right? And so if there are some schools that you've gotten into that you're considering, you can plan. Maybe you're planning a long drive or a road trip, but you have time to figure that out and to get some of those things sorted. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me know in the comments. Make sure that you are rating and following and subscribing. Also make sure that you look at our links. We've got blogs, we've got free guides, we've got a $19 personal statement and diversity statement course. We are a nonprofit, so we do have sliding scales on all of our packages. As always, if you have questions, you can always submit them to bit.ly/breakintolawschool. I'm excited for you. Let me know. I always say, let me know if you're a listener or subscriber and you've gotten into law school. I'd love to shout you out. I'd love to celebrate with you. I'm here for you. I am always praying for you, and I will see you soon.